like Matt was getting into you guys pretty heavy after practice. What was his message?
Yeah, just some of the chippiness and some of the post play things that might be going on, offense and defensively. So just the message is practice smarter. I always have that team first mentality, and obviously everybody's out there competing, and football is a very violent sport. A lot of things go on, but just to have that mindset, we're taking care of each other in practice.
You want physicality, obviously, and that's the game. But where does it cross the line in your mind? Where does it go too far?
Yeah, that's a hard thing to gauge. But I think in practice, anytime you get stuff, post whistle, post play, or stuff that just seems kind of unnecessary, I think that's when it crosses the line. But I think anytime you put a teammate in a bad position where they could potentially, get injured, or they might be letting off. So there's a lot of things that go into practice where in a game, you might be doing some of those things. So I think practice is tough. Once you get going, we get those competition periods, and guys want to go out there and compete, which that's something that it's part of the team that we love. We love that competitiveness, and guys want to go out there and fight for everything. And it gets chippy. There's some back and forth between offense and defense. Guys get to talking, so that's football. But I think obviously we got to draw the line when it goes post play.
What'd you see on the long run to Golden?
Man. I think they were in man coverage, and MG was on the backside. They did a good job, guarding our front side concept, but just worked back, and he ran a double move, and he did a really good job selling it. It's a play that we actually ran yesterday, a similar play, and I think this one he did a much better job just selling it, committing to the first route before he broke out, and I think that's what helped get him open. And those are the easy ones. You kind of just lob it up there for him, let him go finish it. But he's been doing some really good things.
On the go route in the 1v1, it looked like 24 was all over. When you let that ball go, were you thinking, like, is there any chance he's going to catch us with the way the coverage was? What do you think of that adjustment?
No, so MG was running a go ball on CV, and I think CV did a really good job, kind of pushing him to the sideline, not giving me too much room to throw it. At first when I let it go, I was like, oh man, I missed it too far inside. And those balls, you want to give them a chance outside, but I didn't think there was a chance. I was like, oh, CV's going to pick this one, and MG did a really good job, be able to come back, track the ball inside, and go up and high point that ball. So, I think that's one of his specialties that I've seen so far, is just the aggressiveness in his hands, and always going up there and trying to high point the ball. And he's got very strong hands, and he's able to go up and compete for that ball. So I think that's one of those things that's going to separate him.
Have you seen enough of him yet? I know it's 1 week in camp, and it seems like he's making plays every day. Have you seen enough to have start to build some expectations for what you can give you this season?
Oh, definitely. I think just him coming in here, the way he's putting the work so far, as a rookie, it's going to be a process. It always is. It's just coming in, learning the playbook, understanding the scheme. There's going to be plays you mess up. There's going to be plays you bust. There's going to be plays you kind of run the route the wrong way. So there's just opportunities to learn. But I think for him, he's been doing a great job. He's been in the book, and he's been getting more comfortable with knowing where he needs to be. So let's just keep building that. But I think the playmaking ability is there. You see that. When the ball's in the air, he's going to go get it and make that play. So let's just continue to hone in on the little details and just keep getting better each day.
Jordan, the one you threw, I think it was yesterday on the sideline, and he almost wrestled it away from Keyshawn. I think it was to your left. You have to have pretty strong hands to make that catch.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yep. No, yeah, that's another one, another instance right there. I throw a ball to the sideline, and Keyshawn does a good job of trying to play through his hands right there, and that's when he went up there and plucked it. So, that's something you love to see. A receiver going up there, having those aggressive hands, just trusting his ability right there to go make that play. And obviously, with Key being able to play through his hands, just to be able to finish that catch, that's a great play. And those are the plays that, we're going to expect from him going forward.
Jordan, looking at even those throws, but even some of the ones that were, intercepted in practice, is this the time of the year where you're wanting to be like even more risky or try to experiment to see what works? Is that like a process that you do when you're practicing?
There's always that fine line as a QB of taking care of the football. That's the number one goal at all times is taking care of the ball, making sure the offense, finishes every drive with either, a field goal, a punt, or a touchdown. So ball security is number one. But like you said, as we go through these installs and you're trying new things with plays and you're seeing a lot of different coverages, there's instances where, defense has good coverage and you might not see somebody, or the ball placement might be a little off, and those are the things you got to go back in the film room and learn from, grow from those moments, those instances. But I think the number one job for the quarterback is always ball security. We got to do a good job taking care of it. And that's the main thing. But, training camp, I'd rather throw a pick in practice, learn from it, than go out there and mess up in the game.
What was it like getting Elton back with you guys, and just the value now of getting those snaps with him, for these practices and what's to come?
Oh, it's awesome, being able to get him back out there, and obviously with him moving from guard to center, it's one of those things we talked about where every rep is valuable to be able to get those snaps and just be on the same page. And obviously with him being the guy making all the calls in the run game for the O-line, and just being dialed in with everything. So it's good to have him back out there, and we're gonna keep building him up in there. But he's the leader of the O-line room for sure. He's the vet in there, and anytime you get him back out there, it's nice.
I don't know how long Marshawn might be down for, but how much does it affect you and your offense without him?
Yeah, it's tough. Anytime a guy goes down with any type of injury, it's tough, especially a guy like Marshawn, who obviously has been battling through some things last year with the injuries. So, you hate to see that. It's one of those things where he's got to do a great job in treatment and rehab with the trainers, be able to get back as fast as possible, because, every rep that he gets is going to be so valuable for him, and then preseason is going to be a big deal for him. So obviously want to get him back as soon as possible.
You see Josh really taking him under his wing, Tucker taking some of the other guys. Just talk about the leadership a little bit that you've seen grow in the last week since training camp started.
Oh, Josh Jacobs has always been a guy who's been a leader in that running back room. He's always coaching those guys up when he sees anything, and just trying to help them be on the same page. I think that's where it's at, when you got the vets and the leaders in that room coaching everybody else up to be on the same page, because you never know when that your number's going to get called, and you don't want any kind of drop off from the next guy up. So he does a great job with that. Like you mentioned, Tuck is definitely coming into more of a leadership role, and obviously the playmaker he is, making those plays out there. But that's what we need. We need those leaders and the vets in there to step up, coach those guys up, because, like I said, you never know when the next guy's number's going to get called.
Speaking of Tuck, there's only a few offenses in the league that really feature their tight end as that number one option. You have a guy here that see how he develops, but he might have that type of ability. What does it require for an offense to feature the tight end in that kind of promise? How does that change the offense? What's needed for that?
Yeah, I think, for that, a lot of it is just scheme, how we dial certain plays up, making plays all look alike, because I think as a tight end, you do so much blocking, it's easy for you to get lost on play actions and things like that when guys might think you're blocking. So I think we're also doing a good job just, putting him maybe on the backside by himself, let him run some individual routes, and, I think his coach is just trying to scheme up ways to get him the ball. But he's definitely a guy that, has that ability to be, one of the top pass catchers in our offense, and just his playmaking ability. So it'll be fun to see how we're keep using him, keep finding ways to get him the ball. But I think a lot of that just comes down to the scheme and how we dial things up.
Would you like to see some of that downfield stuff kind of develop with him more? Obviously we know what he can do on leaks and checks and yak, but getting him downfield like he did last year, would you like to see that develop more?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that we're going to be, improving on and doing a little bit more of. But like I said, some of that stuff is just scheme and trying to how you dial certain plays up, how you make everything look the same. And sometimes he might be blocking. Sometimes we might go 12 personnel and have another tight end blocking and be able to let him, get down the field in some instances. But he's got that ability to be able to, run those 20, 25-yard routes, get down the field, and he's a really good route runner. So it's something that we're just going to keep building.
Jordan, what does family night mean to you, and do you warn the new guys and the rookies, or do you let them find out for themselves on Saturday night?
Oh no, I think that's one of those instances for the rookies. Just they get to experience that for the first time. Running out in Lambeau, feeling the crowd and the environment for the first time. That you don't want to give them that warning. You want them to experience that. But it's special. It's a fun night to be able to go out there, have a practice in the stadium, just get that feel of what it feels like to play in Lambeau. And we do a lot of fun stuff. I think The net drill we do as quarterbacks is always such a fun thing with the fans always cheering for us. But obviously we got to make some buckets. But get the fireworks out there after, and just have the families involved. So it's a pretty cool deal. I don't know how many other teams do stuff like that. So it's fun.
Charlie asked a lot about catches that Golden made, and I think he was on the receiving end of this one too. But there was a play in the early 11-on-11 where I think Lucas might have sacked you, but you kind of eluded him, and then you threw it to Golden on the right sideline. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Okay. So you had that play. You had the throw downfield to Wicks a couple days ago for the touchdown where you were pressured. And how much of your game is predicated on those subtle movements in the pocket? How vital is that to what you do, and how effective do you think you were at it last year when you were hobbled? Was that one of the ways that stuff really impacted you think?
Yeah, I mean, first off, it wasn't a sack on Van Ness. We go back and forth with this stuff all the time, whether it's a sack or we got out of it. So it's one of those things you'll never know in practice. But no, I mean that's just us playing the drill, and that was a play that we had dialed up, to try and throw back on a corner post or tuck, and Van Ness did a good job of kind of killing the play right there. So you got to find that next option of MG running across, and one where he's just kind of coming scot-free and you just lay it up for him on the sideline. But like you said, I think the movement aspect of my game, being able to move in the pocket, was something that was limited for a good amount last year when I had my injuries, but definitely something I want to have a focus on going into the season to amp up and do more of, because I think there's so many instances when a defense does a good job just covering the first couple of reads where you can work the pocket, kind of get out and scramble and just keep that play going and extend them a little bit more and even just take off and use my legs and running. So it's definitely something I've had a focus coming into this of how I can keep implementing that, and always having that mindset to never try and get sacked and keep the play alive, and maybe not even just throw it down to the check down right away, but trying to work in the pocket. So it's something that you got to do in practice, and obviously it's tough in practice when you're not live and guys might be letting up on the D line. So it's one of those things where you just got to keep working through things and keep adding that aspect to my game. But it's one of those things that I think will really come alive this season.
And that's one of those things that as you develop, and now in year 3 and beyond, like you might just take the check down, right, in year 1. Is that's the growth, right? Is that kind of how the whole thing comes together for you as the process moves on?
Definitely. It's one of those things that, like I said, every year you look at it, the film after the season, and find those little ways to improve. And I think that's a big one that I myself can improve on to be able to help our plays go off schedule and just continue to keep finding that consistency. But there's definitely a fine line where sometimes the D line might be winning. You got to find that check down. There's sometimes where you might be in that pocket and not feel a lane, but you look back on film like, man, I could have took off right there and found that lane. So it's just a fine line to it. But I think the more we keep doing it in practice, the easier and more comfortable I'll be in the game doing it.
On the note of intensity, before we talked this morning about double-edged sword, with the defense playing the way that it is, how does that help you prepare, knowing that you still have to be 100% both mentally and physically to try and iron sharpens iron in that case?
I mean, just to the physicality, you love that. You love guys coming out here wanting to compete, a defense that's physical. That's the stuff that, like you say, wins you championships. So you love the mindset from the guys, and it's one of those things where we just got to find ways in practice to, take care of each other in those instances, but to be able to keep that same intensity and still have that same mindset. So you love that. I love the competitiveness, and those are things that I think is going to really make us better and give us that edge when we get into the season, going against other teams, to have that mindset. Like, we're not going to let anybody come in here and, do what they want with us. We got to have that mindset where we're going to be the tone setters, and it starts with the defense for sure.
With all the personalities you've got in here, energy, guys competing for jobs, there's got to be some conflicts between a couple of guys, right? Do you monitor that? I mean, do you worry about a division or being disruptive? And do you step in as a leader, or do you ask guys like Jacobs or something like that? What's going on with those guys? Do you monitor that?
No, I mean, it's one of those things where, this is football. We got a big team. It's not like basketball or any of these other sports. We got a lot of guys on the team right now, obviously during training camp, and that cuts down to that 53-man roster. But it's one of those things, there's a lot of different personalities. So I think it just comes back to everybody having that mindset of team first. We're all in this together. We're fighting for the same common goal to go out there, win as many games as possible, take the NFC North and win a Super Bowl. So I think if everybody has that right mindset, you kind of you kind of let some of that other stuff go, and you don't have as many divisions and guys bickering. But the competitive, that stuff always happens. You know, it's football. These guys are battling every day. O-line, D-line, they're banging every day. So there's going to be some chippiness on the field. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to dap each other up and you know, find ways to compete through the whistle and understand that we're a team at the end of the day.
Jordan Moore for Jordan Sharps going into the Hall this week. I don't know if you've watched any of his highlights from his time here, but if you have, like, what are your thoughts on him going in and kind of what he's meant to this organization?
No, I've definitely seen a couple of Sterling Sharps highlights. I've met him in person, the autograph signing. So, you know, that's awesome. Definitely give him his congratulations because, you know, it's not an easy feat to do. So, anytime a guy goes in the Hall of Fame, you know, it's a very big credit to just the career they had and the type of player that they were. So, you know, that's a big congratulations to him. No, I mean, I got to turn on the tape and go watch some more highlights for sure.